Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manuhiri, no mai, higher mai, ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā toto katoa. As we gather together this morning in the space made sacred over the last 114 years by Auckland Unitarians, may we learn to recognize and affirm the pieces of possibility, the bits of good we bring. May we encourage rather than control, love rather than possess, enable rather than envy, allowing our individual gifts to weave a patchwork of peace. The soft, deep blue of sensitivity and understanding, the red energy of creativity, the white heat of convictions, the risky, fragile green of new growth, the golden flashes of gratitude, the warm rose of love. Each of us is indispensable if we are to minister to a broken and wounded world. Together, in our gathered diversity, we form the whole. So be it. To worship means to consider that which has worth. Today we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community, the opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others, the chance to stand up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice, the freedom to choose one's own path to truth, and to learn from the travelogues of others. The space to expand one's own spirit and reconnect after busy or humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of one's life. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love and the aspiration to consider all life as precious, for if all of it is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous? So this morning, let's welcome all of these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies. The blood of the martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion, the sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity, the tears of those who struggle to build better lives for those in this life, the questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understanding to us as a fresh lens, the laughter and joy of those giddy with the embrace of community, the dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and then stretched to give a little more. The infinite small acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole, done by those who knew themselves in sympathy with our purposes. So today we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward what has been paid forward for us. And now with all of this, let us enter into worship with gladness in our hearts. We light this chalice to honor the memory of those who have come before us, kindling flames of wisdom in dark times, willing to challenge orthodoxy, even at great personal risk, giving us a legacy of freedom and a love of truth, a legacy that warms our hearts and lights our paths. When I was 6, we got our first television. I think that was about 5 years before television made it to New Zealand. It was love at first sight. It was beautiful in its large wooden cabinet with this much smaller tube. The black and white images were magical. It changed my daily routine. After school, I watched the Mickey Mouse Club, and yes, I had the ears, followed by Superman. On Friday night, there was Flash Gordon. Saturday morning, there were cartoons and my Western heroes. I loved TV every day of the week except Sunday mornings. There were only 3 channels. 2 had interviews of people in the news. I was not yet a political junkie. So that left the 3rd station, which had religious programming. I vividly remember one Sunday watching an Oral Roberts tent revival called The Abundant Life. Oral Roberts was a Pentecostal preacher from Oklahoma who had a mobile tent from which he conducted evangelistic and faith healing services, crusades around America. The tent could hold 3,000 people. But with the advent of television, his audience grew exponentially. He was good entertainment. Even in black and white, he was colorful. He would call people on stage, many of them on crutches, ask them what they want, if they wanted to be healed. He placed his hand on their forehead and demand that the devil leave them, and they would collapse on a heap. And he would lift them up, and they would throw their crutches on the growing pile next to the stage and walk off praising Jesus for their healing. Even at the age of 6, I knew it was all crap. But it was very profitable crap by the amount of money brought to the stage at the love offering. Before he hit Sunday morning prime time, Roberts struggled as a part-time preacher in Oklahoma. But at the age of 29, Roberts picked up his Bible and it fell open to the 3rd letter of John, where verse 2 read, "I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health." The next day, he said, he bought a Buick and God appeared, directing him to heal the sick. A little known fact is that every preacher has only one sermon. Robert's one sermon was based on this biblical passage. His message was seed faith. It was a faith based on the parable of the small mustard seed. With faith as small as a mustard seed, all things were possible. What Roberts preached was a prosperity gospel. What that seed sprouted was wealth and health, but mostly for Roberts. The seed was to send the Oral Roberts Evangelization Association a small contribution, and the giver would become prosperous and healthy and have abundant life. As a pioneer in televangelism, his ministries reached millions of followers worldwide, spanning a period of over 6 decades. He raised enough money to build a university and a hospital. There's much more to his story, a lot of it besmirched by scandal and tragedy. But the point this morning is he made money and religion unholy bedfellows. He inspired a whole generation of televangelists who followed his formula. In New Zealand, we have Bishop Brian Tamaki. I've met him twice. The first time was at a funeral of a prominent Catholic priest active in social justice who would have despised his gospel of prosperity. It is traditional for clergy to walk in procession behind the coffin. Brian was there in his expensive Italian suit and Rolex, while the rest of us were in simple white robes. I was not impressed. The second time was on Mari TV's Mediatek panel. To debate with him whether or not New Zealand was a Christian nation. He was there with his wife, and he seemed to know the optics weren't right for lavish dress. He was much more informal in an open collar shirt. But many of us have seen the photos of his congregation putting large denominations they can't afford on a stage in hopes of being able to dress like him, live in luxurious homes, drive expensive cars, and take lavish holidays. I'm disgusted by those who use faith as a manipulative business model for their own benefit. My revulsion makes it difficult for me to preach on what we here call Canvas Sunday, and what I am used to calling in Anglican circles Stewardship Sunday. My practical side gives me an excuse for not preaching about the financial needs of the congregation. First, it is more than embarrassing that in a small congregation, a large percentage of the budget is for my half-time salary. It is like having to sing for my supper, or at least my lunch. I am repelled. I would starve as a salesman because I suck at closing the deal. My father once told my partner, "Don't start a business with Clay. He'll give away the store." The second excuse, it is the responsibility of the management committee to make sure we can afford to keep the lights on. Let them explain, as they already have, how much it costs, and then I can avoid dealing with it. Keep it simple, and let Canvas Sunday just be about paying the bills. But this preacher's one sermon won't let me leave it alone. I have preached with reservations many stewardship sermons over the years. And for me, it has never been about the money. Nor is it because the Bible says we're to tithe, nor is it because it is a down payment for getting into heaven, nor is it about paying for your sins. It's not blood money, nor is it a transaction that promises you prosperity. What you give has to be given freely and joyfully, with no strings attached. Otherwise, it is a fishy kind of love. You probably wondered when I was going to get to the title of this sermon. Dr. Andrew Twersky, an Hasidic rabbi and psychiatrist, gives a talk on YouTube about love, a word that in our culture that has lost almost all its meaning. In it, he tells an interesting story about a rebbe, a Jewish spiritual teacher, who came across a young man who was clearly enjoying a dish of fish that he was eating. He asked the young man, "Why are you eating that fish?" The young man says, "Because I love fish." The rabbi answers, "Oh, you love the fish. That's why you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it. Don't tell me you love the fish. You love yourself because the fish tastes good to you. Therefore, you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it." So much of what we call love is fish love. And so a young couple, a young man and a young woman, fall in love. He saw in this woman, well, what does that mean? He saw in this woman someone who he felt could provide him with all his physical and emotional needs. And she felt in this man was somebody she felt could do the same for her. It felt like love, but each was looking out for their own needs. It's not love for the other. The other person becomes a vehicle for his or her gratification. Too much of what we call love is fish love, an internal love of self. Love is different. It isn't about what I'm going to get, but what I'm going to give. If you've gotten lost, remember Shel Silverstein and the Giving Tree, okay? Ethicist Rabbi Dessler said, "People make a serious mistake in thinking that you give to those you love. The real answer is You love those to whom you give. His point is, if I give something to you, I've invested myself in you. Since self-love is a given, everybody loves themselves. Now that part of me has become in you. There's a part of me in you that I love. True love is a love of giving, not a love of receiving. In most Unitarian congregations, there is no mention of sacraments, although there are exceptions. What is a sacrament? The traditional understanding of a sacrament is it's an outward and visible sign of an inward and spiritual grace. In Christianity, there are two primary sacraments, baptism and communion. The outward side of baptism is that water is poured over a child 3 times in the name of the Trinity. The inward and spiritual grace is that the person becomes an acknowledged child of God and a member of the household of God, the church. The outward sign of communion is eating bread and drinking wine. The inward and spiritual grace is becoming one with Jesus and all those who have done the same in the past, the present, and the future. In both cases, the sacrament provides people with an identity. It tells them who they are. That guides how they are to live. For the last 3 years, I have preached that we have 2 sacraments at the Auckland Unitarian Church: the sacrament of hospitality and the sacrament of generosity. They are closely related. The outward visible sign of hospitality is morning tea. It is more than bringing goodies to share with our tea and coffee. It is physically being here to meet and greet visitors and those looking for a spiritual home. That sacrament requires your presence so relationships can be established and expanded. If you're not here, that doesn't happen. The inward and spiritual grace is that being vulnerable and welcoming enriches your life and the lives of those you meet. It is a sacrament of connection. Those connections make us stronger as a community. The outward and visible sign of the sacrament of generosity is obvious. It's the money you put in the offertory bag, or these days pay through electronic funds transfer, and the time you give to our common ministry. The inward and spiritual grace is that you are investing yourself without strings attached to something bigger than yourself, our beloved community. You are not just connecting to those in the past that made this place and community possible. You are not just connecting with those who are here now, people with whom you are one. You are also keeping alive a dream. You are connecting with our grandchildren and great-grandchildren who, because of our sacrament of generosity, will hear the minister begin worship by saying that for the past 230 years, Auckland Unitarians have been making this space sacred. You are investing in your immortality. This year, when you are asked to pledge, don't pledge to make sure we meet our budget. Sorry, Finance Committee. Although we are faced with a challenging goal this year, I trust we will get there. By all appearances, we have done so successfully for the past 115 years. Pledge because your investment makes you a part of this place. I don't want you to give because you love who we are. I want you to love Auckland Unitarians because it is who you are. No other reason will make a difference in your life. Any other reason is fishy love. Amen. For our meditation, let me offer these words by Kathleen McTeague. In the struggles we choose for ourselves in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are still with us. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living. Closing words. Sing to the power of the faith within. Sing to the power of our deep love, our strong hope and bright joy. But flex the power of these gifts too. Put your faith and hope to use. Share your joy and love more freely than you thought possible. For together we use these tools to carve out lives of wonder and purpose and service. Go in peace.